Chini unishikie kichwa.
Huyu.
Shuka unishikie kichwa.
Yeah, okay. It's okay. Kwa hiyo gari ingine na unajua tuna note 4153 4153.
Hello and welcome to NTV Wild Talk with me, Smriti Vidyarthi. What you've just witnessed is a rhino being darted by KWS officials and also experts here at the Ol Pejeta Conservancy. The way that all these men ran to it, that is as fast as poachers come and knock down these rhinos. But what this exercise is a notching exercise. It is a way to, in fact, protect these rhinos. We'll find out more about it in just a moment. This really is a very critical exercise that's going on. As you can see, water is being poured. Let's just watch a bit of the action before we explain what's happening.
It's a bit guilty, yeah. What? 4153. 53. 4153.
So joining me now is Samuel Mutisia. He in fact is the wildlife manager here at Ol Pejeta. Thanks for joining us once again on NTV Wild Talk. Samuel, this is a crucial exercise. Take us through what's happening right now behind us.
Yeah, as you said rightly, this is a notching exercise. This is an animal that is about 6 years old. It's a white rhino. The idea is actually to put this animal down and make cuts on the ears that would identify this particular animal uniquely. And therefore, we do that in the shortest time possible so that we release the animal without endangering it. More to it, we are going to be drilling certain areas and inserting security gadgets.
Samuel, for just a moment, there's a vehicle behind us and I'm seeing a man with a drill. Have a look there. Just take us through what's happening with this drill.
Yeah, they're going to be drilling and are going to also make incisions elsewhere and actually put in some security gadget that will enable us to track this animal just to prevent and to ensure that it remains safe and secure.
Okay, and before this drilling takes place, let's have a look at what's happening on the rhino's ear. It's actually bleeding. Take us through. That is actually a notch. Every ear has a special cuts that should add up to the ID number of that particular animal. So this particular animal will be rhino number 153. Okay.
And so the notch pattern will actually be 153.
Okay, there is so much going on at one time, Samuel. We're not even able to get very close to this rhino. Explain to us how this, in essence, is going to protect the rhino from poachers.
In principle, one is to enhance monitoring. Then secondly, it will also have certain gadgets, security gadgets inserted in various places around the body to help in being able to track the animal, and that in a way is a protection, because then when we know where the animal is, then we can protect it.
Okay, let's just listen in to a little bit of the action right now.
So it's a very unique exercise because everybody has this as task. There is somebody who is supposed to be doing the notching.
Right.
There is somebody else who is supposed to be monitoring the condition, the performance of the animal, so we don't lose it. So the vets are working on that. And we are also having a team here that will need to actually move this animal because we intend to take it away from here as well.
Okay, all right. So Samuel has taken us through briefly what's happening behind us. It really is a very intense atmosphere here. You can even see the blood coming down on the rhino's face. And if we just move, there's a tractor behind us as well, because this rhino is in fact going to be transported, relocated to a different place. I'm going to find out from Samuel right now how this rhino must be feeling. Samuel, you're over here. Come this way. I mean, the rhino has been darted with a tranquilizer, Samuel, but you can tell that it's still moving a little bit. So can you take us through what perhaps it's going through right now?
It's in a state that it's unconscious, really, so to speak. On the vitals, only the vital organs, are performing, and that's why the animal is still alive.
Okay.
But in essence, it is sedated. It can't feel the pain at the moment, and so we try to keep it in that state for the shortest time possible.
Why is it so important that this exercise happens with incredible speed? Because the animal has been tranquilized, and that medicine essentially goes to its brain to sort of shut it down, right?
Yeah. In principle, you don't want to have the animal down for so long.
Okay.
Because the more you have the animal down,
right,
you tend to expose it more and more.
Okay.
But actually, that drug has to be reversed.
Okay.
If actually you leave this animal here, there's a chance that it will not wake up again.
Okay.
So the presence of veterinary officers there is to monitor the animal, just to ensure that we don't lose it. So you reverse it immediately.
So and tell me, ultimately, I mean, what is the worst case scenario?
Well, I don't think there's with the kind of professionals we have here from Kenya Wildlife Service, we don't stand any chances of either losing the animal, because they follow protocol.
Okay.
They monitor heart rate and among other parameters that would ensure that this animal is not in any danger.
Okay, all right. I think let's get closer now to the rhino to get a better sense of what's happening. So I'm actually now much closer to this rhino, and this is the rhino's horn. Remember, the whole point of this exercise is to protect these rhinos from poachers. What poachers are after is this incredible horn, which is just made out of keratin, the same thing as your fingernails. It has no medicinal value whatsoever. But the poachers kill rhinos just to get their hands on this horn. So remember, this exercise... Okay. This exercise is to protect the rhino. A transmitter has been drilled into its horn so that it can be tracked, and its ear has also been notched so that experts here, the wildlife manager, can track this rhino's whereabouts. And remember, this rhino weighs a hell of a lot. Samuel, could you just... How stressful is this for the rhino?
It's not stressful really, because the animal is completely knocked down.
Okay.
So
it's okay.
But we try not to make a lot of noise so that it can still fairly hear us.
Okay.
And so we try to minimize that time of exposure to this kind of activity.
How much does this guy weigh?
This guy must be approaching 2 tons now.
This is, of course, a southern white rhino.
This is a southern white rhino, yes.
It really is an incredible exercise. And this here is where the horn of the rhino has been drilled into. A transmitter has been put in here and also in here as well. And this, of course, is a southern white rhino. You can tell that by the shape of its mouth. Remember, the southern white rhinos have a longer mouth, as you can see, because they're able to then browse along the plains The black rhino, which also has been notched here during this exercise, has a more pointed mouth because it pulls on shrubs. Samuel, if you could just come in for a moment. I'm also noticing, if my camera can just get these images, water is being poured on the rhino as well. What is the importance of this?
Normally when the animal goes down, and the fact that it could have taken or run a little bit upon darting, it tends to overheat. So water
regulates,
regulates
the
temperature of the animal, yes. Kidogo tu. Haina siko wapi? It's Linus. Leta actually. So we can move it.
Kuja hapa. Leta hii makamba ya kando. Enda. Hapo.
Samuel, clearly so much effort is being made into getting this massive rhino onto this container because it's going to be translocated to a different area. What are the chances that it could wake up?
Chances are very slim, but in the event that it wakes up, everybody is usually on the alert because you never know. There's always a slim chance that the animal could wake up or could. So we try to be very cautious at every one given time when the operation is going on.
And I can also see that the scissors are still in the rhino's ears. Why is that?
You keep them right where they are because you want to put pressure on the wounds to stop bleeding.
Okay.
So it's important to have the scissors in there for the longest time possible so that you stop bleeding.
Tell me, how many men, and I saw a few women in fact as well, are involved in this exercise, because this is serious labor?
Yeah, but it's got to be more than 20 people because again pushing these animals sometimes requires that you have enough strength.
Right.
You know, once the animal is revived. So we will all shut up and actually have the animal walk into the crate.
And just a moment, Samuel, if you come with me, I've noticed that this gentleman over here with the gloves keeps putting his hand in the rhino's nostril. Why is that?
Because he's monitoring his breathing. You know, there are certain parameters that would indicate if the animal is actually getting overwhelmed by the exercise. And so he has to monitor many parameters, including the heart rate and all that.
What would happen if the animal, if its heart rate went too high or too low, and if it was in danger?
If the animal was in danger, they would revive it immediately. They would just revive it.
Using some medication?
Yes, there is an antidote.
Okay,
so
yes,
this animal, actually, once it goes down, it will not come up again unless you use that antidote. And that's why it's important not to lose it. That's why we had a plane above us to help in spotting, just in case it runs off.
Okay. How often do rhinos have to be notched?
It should actually happen every year, but we do it every other year. You know, in 2 years we should do at least one single exercise of notching. Particularly if your population is large enough, it means there's new rhinos being recruited every other year. And so there are those that are getting into the bracket within the ages that we can notch.
And roughly how long does this sort of an exercise take?
If we were not requiring to move it a little bit or to move it across the fence, we would have ended this exercise a long time ago. Really? So this is a little bit complicated. Otherwise, we would only take about 15 minutes and the animal is up.
It's up and running.
Okay. Yeah.
Gosh, I mean, this really has been pretty fascinating. It really goes to show that the extent that wildlife organizations and conservancies... Okay, just a moment.
So they're actually about to revive the animal, and that is why we now pay much more attention to how the animal behaves. You will see all those men, you know, gang up around it.
Let's get closer.
Yeah, but we need to be very careful. We don't need to get close. We need to be, actually at this point in time, you need to know where you can actually hide in case the animal comes towards you.
The man in the white shirt, that's one of the vets, he's just injecting it.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is the drug that's being put in its ear. You can see it sort of just looks like any ordinary injection. This, remember, is Atan, so we will be waiting to see how Atan reacts. And we have to be quiet.
Tunasikia ina charge.
Samuel, so that rhino has now gotten into that container safe and sound.
Yes.
Tell us what it must be going through, because it was hit on the back a little bit to wake it up.
Yes.
What sort of a state is it in right now?
You know, we take advantage of that surprise. When it wakes up, it doesn't have any chance to turn left or right, so it's pushed into the crate.
With incredible speed.
Yes, with incredible speed, and you slam close the bars that you just saw the guys put across.
Yes.
So it can't come out. So before it knows where it is, it's actually in the crate.
Worst case scenario, what could have happened?
You see, if you make a lot of noise, you actually disturb it.
Right.
And upon waking up, there is usually a moment when it's awake, but has not risen up. At that point, you need to be very quiet so you don't startle it and it doesn't fight back.
Right.
So then that gives you an opportunity to push.
Okay.
At the moment, it's conscious. It can sort of hear us. It's all right. It is safe. You can hardly lose this animal at this state now.
Why is this rhino being transported?
You know, we've always said that we need to get the white rhinos breeding.
Yes.
And for that to happen, we need empty or females that are not pregnant within the area, within this enclosure.
Yeah.
And so any potential candidate that can easily get these females pregnant, we must take them out.
Okay, so it's more so to do with breeding.
It's notching,
okay,
as well as also managing this particular enclosure for the purposes of preparing for the white rhinos to continue to breed.
All right, and I'm just seeing a gentleman here with a very interesting object that you had earlier.
Yes.
What is that exactly?
That's called a prodder,
and
usually it gives a shock to the animal when you feel it's been quiet or you want it to do a certain thing.
So Samuel, what's happening up here? There is still a lot of activity, a little bit difficult to see, but I see a man lying across the container.
Yeah, you see, once you put in the animal, you still need to monitor it. You still need to look at how it's standing, how it's behaving, whether it's safe. So the vet has to check. The other team, has to assist. You have to take up ropes that were tied around it to pull it, because if you see, there's a Land Cruiser ahead of the crate.
Yes.
So part of it was to direct the animal into the crate, and so you have to loosen the ropes and let the ropes go. You have to take off the blinder.
But you're moving this animal from this particular boma. How is this going to affect perhaps its relationship with other rhinos? Because here it was living with perhaps its family.
Yeah. When you move animals, you need to move them into an area where you know it's safe.
Yeah.
You also need to ensure that where you're moving it, you're not exposing it to other males immediately.
Okay.
So you give it time to rest, to settle within the general area.
And is this incident perhaps at all stressful for the rhino? Because as an outsider watching this for the first time, and perhaps you, our viewer as well, your heart's beating and you feel for the rhino, because there it is just grazing as normal, and suddenly it's darted, and there's so much activity.
Yeah, you see, this is normal for wildlife management.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need to do this to ensure that the species continues to exist. So this is a necessary move, and we ensure that stresses are kept to the minimum as much as possible, and that's why we have all these professionals around us.
Yeah, there's so
the
many
vets,
people here.
the guys who watch them. It's a teamwork experience.
This noise and shaking, is that the rhino inside making that movement?
That's why we need to be very quiet, because it's got to feel a little disturbed because it's in the box. Because now it is conscious.
Wow.
Yeah.
To think that all this effort has to be made to ensure it doesn't sort of inbreed, which is one thing, but B, to protect its lives from poachers who really are devastating the rhino population across the world. I mean, watching this, it really is shocking and almost heartbreaking. And there it goes, though, being translocated. So, Samuel, really, I mean, the fact that this entire process has to take place primarily to protect the rhino from poachers. I mean, it really does make you think, what are we putting our wildlife through? I mean, drilling a hole in its horn, it's incredible. Does that, first of all, hurt the rhino in any way?
No. You know, the horn is actually made of stuff like we've got on our fingernails.
Yes,
it's
of
just
course.
keratin.
Yeah.
It's dead essentially, so there's no pain. The animal doesn't feel pain.
Right.
But it's become important to deploy certain security gadgets within the animal so that you keep monitoring it for its protection. And so Kenya Wildlife Service has embarked on an exercise to deploy other security gadgets within the animal when you have an opportunity to ensure that then you can monitor it thereafter.
And of course, talking about the drilling, there is definitely sort of an art or a science to it. No doubt you have to ensure the drill doesn't go too deep and it doesn't catch a nerve.
Essentially what we do is the gadget is not big.
Okay.
And so just a small hole into the horn
Right.
is sufficient to put some of those gadgets. But essentially that is to offer security to that animal even after releasing it in the wild.
I mean, if only we could just leave these creatures be, you know. How long has this sort of an exercise gone on for?
The rhino program in Kenya has a management strategy, and we would want to have all rhinos identifiable so that when we do census, when we do tallying across the country, we are sure to a certain measure that, you know, it is the exact number we are talking about.
Okay, all right. No doubt the rhino is going to be released shortly. We need to capture some of that footage.
Sure.
So let's get on with it.
Thank you.
But first, we're taking a break on NTV Wild Talk, and here's our wild guess question. What is the notch pattern number on Atan the rhino? What is the notch pattern number on Atan the rhino? Use the hashtag NTV Wild on Twitter or like our NTV Wild Facebook page and post your answer on the timeline. Private messages won't be considered. The first person to answer correctly wins 2 nights for 6 people at the incredible Kigali House in the renowned Lower Conservancy. The winner also gets 1 bottle of wine, courtesy of Wines of the World, and a gift hamper, courtesy of Wildlife Direct. Terms and conditions apply, and last week's lucky winner was Mustafa Adamji. Welcome back to NTV Wild Talk. Here's a reminder of our wild guess question. What is the notch pattern number on Atan the rhino? What is the notch pattern number on Atan the rhino? Use the hashtag NTV Wild on Twitter or like our NTV Wild Facebook page and post your answer on the timeline. Private messages won't be considered. The first person to answer correctly wins 2 nights for 6 people at the incredible Kigali House in the renowned Lower Conservancy. The winner also gets 1 bottle of wine, courtesy of Wines of the World, and a gift hamper, courtesy of Wildlife Direct. Terms and conditions apply, and last week's lucky winner was Mustafa Adamji. All right, so you have witnessed the darting of this rhino, the ear notching process and the drilling of the horn, and now the translocation process has happened. This rhino is going to be released into the wild, and joining me now is Patrick from KWS. He is in charge of this capture operation. Thanks for joining us. This has been a very, very intense operation. How successful has it been so far in your view?
Yeah, it's very successful because we have done this within a duration of around 30 to 40 minutes.
Yeah.
We didn't use our machines like the lifting crane. We use a tractor to just put the crate and we create the rhino. And as you see, the rhino is bigger than these white rhinos are bigger than
The black.
the black.
Yes.
So they are very heavy, but we did it very nicely.
Yeah, it indeed was a smooth process.
Very smooth.
Right
process.
now, the rhino is conscious once again. Has the tranquilizer eased off? We can see that it's moving and it can probably hear us as well.
It's conscious now. Now it's okay. It's full.
Okay.
Yeah, we
It-
just release it now. goes to the wild.
All right, and right now, do you think it could perhaps be stressed at all or a little bit confused because...
Just a bit.
Just a little bit.
Because of the drugs.
And that, of course, is very, very natural. All right, so what is the procedure now? What do we have to do?
The procedure now, we just open these bars, and thus just release it go.
And once it goes, what sort of state of mind might it be in based on your experience and research? Because now it's going to be out in the wild.
Yeah, there will be a competition. It's going to meet other males here.
Right.
So there will be a competition between this male and the other males for the territories and all these things. But with time, it will be used to stay.
Oh my goodness me, that is incredible.
So when we release it,
Yeah.
we'll have some guys who will follow it so that they can know exactly how the animal is going.
And of course it can be tracked and monitored.
Yeah, it will be tracked.
Okay, we'll talk about that a little bit later. Let's not keep this this darling rhino in here for too long. Let's witness the release. You suggest that I get up there.
Just get up there.
Okay.
You stay with Sergeant
All right.
Tanui
Okay.
and Derito,
Okay.
the
Great.
assistant warden capture.
Okay.
Then we release the animal.
All right,
It will be okay.
this is going to be fascinating. I mean, worst case scenario, sometimes things can go horribly wrong, but clearly thus far it's been a success. Let's see how the rhino reacts to being released into the wild. All right, let's go up. All right, I'm pretty close to the screen, but what's down here is this rhino. We're just getting ready for the release. Of course, the locks are being unlocked right now. Everyone around us is pretty quiet because we have to let this rhino, of course, settle down a bit. As you can see, there is a bit of confusion. It's getting familiar with its new surrounding. Now it's in the wild. Of course, the bushes and all that is pretty much the same with its previous environment, but the difference is that this area is not fenced. And the drugs are wearing off. You can see that there's still marks and blood on this rhino's face, but that eventually will disappear, and there it goes, off into the wild. So you witnessed an incredible release of a southern white rhino into the wild. How does that make you feel, Patrick? You're in charge of this operation. You've been doing it for a very long time. What does it do to you when you witness something like this?
Exactly before you start darting an animal, you are always anxious because you don't know how the operation will go.
Yeah.
But after the release, you feel even you being released because the animal has gone safely. Yeah. Before we started this exercise, I talked about security.
Yes.
The security of the animal and the people.
Yeah.
We don't want to lose that animal. That animal is precious to us.
Patrick, you know, the poaching crisis has really reached severe levels. Poachers are getting more and more sophisticated these days, and they are merciless and ruthless, ripping off the rhino horns out of the rhinos' faces. I mean, it really, really is heartbreaking and gruesome, and it's devastating the rhino population. How sure are we that these rhinos that have been notched and have transmitters in them will now be better protected?
All the conservancies, being it in a private conservancy, KWS National Parks, we have well-trained security personnel who takes day and night. These animals are always followed 24/7. Always. You have to see all the rhinos, give the statistics. Knowing if you have not seen a rhino for 2 or 3 days, you have to report to the helicopter so that you can know why have you not seen that. When we notch an animal, it has a number. The notches are all different. So they know exactly this is rhino the name of the rhino
Yeah.
and the notch number. So it's different from the others.
Is this process of using technology and putting the rhino through this procedure, is it working? Is it working as a good method to fight the poachers?
Really, it's working. Because one thing, when somebody poaches that rhino horn, you can know exactly this rhino comes from which area.
Okay. How challenging can this procedure be? Because as we witnessed, I mean, a lot of effort goes into it. There's a lot of precision. Adrenaline is high. As you mentioned, people are a little bit anxious because this is a wild animal. Anything can happen. Take us through some of the difficulties that you encounter.
In fact, capturing animals are difficult. One, this is a wild animal. Second, this animal is very huge, and very strong. So it's very challenging. So immediately you get an animal, release it, you feel okay.
It's not always easy darting these creatures, is it? Sometimes it can be missed.
Yeah, it's not always easy because one thing, like these ones are easy. They are just like habituated, they stay with people.
Yes.
The black rhinos are very hard because they stay deep in the bush.
Right.
They must be pushed by the chopper.
Yeah. All right, Patrick, thank you so much. I won't keep you because no doubt you're on to the next one.
We're going to the next one.
All right.
And the next one is bigger than this.
Oh gosh, okay. All right, all the best with that. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much.
So as you saw, the notching exercise happened so quickly. There was so much activity. Of course, it had to be done very, very speedily just for the sake of the rhino. But joining me now is Dr. Dominic, who in fact is a vet who was in charge of this process. Dr. Dominic, take us through what exactly you had to do to the rhino in order to get it back into the wild with regard to the notching process.
Yeah, basically what we do is, first of all, we arrange our teams and we have the drugs ready for capturing the rhinos.
Right.
We cannot do physical capture, so we do chemical immobilization.
Okay.
And that we use this kind of darts, which we put medicine inside here.
Okay.
And then we put the needle here.
Yeah.
Then we put some pressure behind the dart, just like that.
Yeah.
And then
Wow.
it's ready for use.
Okay.
Once we put the medicine here, that's the medicine that we'll use for that.
Right. So it's pretty much the pressure is used with this, which pretty much looks like an injection.
Yes,
Take
you
us.
inject air.
Yes. Take us through the medication that's used. What impact and effect does that have on the rhino?
So the drug that we use for capturing rhino is this one here.
Okay.
We call it etofin.
Oh, I won't. Okay.
It is a highly toxic drug for human beings,
Really?
but it's the one that is effective for capturing rhinos. So we put just 5 milligrams into this.
Yeah.
And once you dart the animal using this drug, the animal will lose consciousness after 5 minutes, and then it will get sedated.
What are some of the challenges you face?
Whenever we are darting like this, we must have aerial support. We must have an aircraft on top, because the animal can disappear in the bushes. And if it disappears with the dart on it, the chances that it might go down in a place where we are not seeing, and that one we can lose the animal.
Gosh, so that can really be fatal.
Yes, and also when the temperature is too hot, like now, after 11 o'clock, we don't dart animals.
Oh, okay.
Because the drug we use will affect the thermoregulation.
Oh, wow.
So once the thermoregulation process is affected and it is hot, the sun, the temperature can get too high.
Oh,
and
gosh.
That is
really, really interesting information. So much effort has to go in, and so much care, of course, to ensure that these rhinos are safe and that this entire process is done professionally. I see some scissors here, and they were used in the notching exercise when, of course, the rhino's ears were cut. So tell us more about these.
So these ones are called hemostats.
Okay.
So this we use them when we are doing the ear notching, when you clamp the ears, and then you cut so that to minimize bleeding.
Right.
It's meant to stop the bleeding. So you just
and
have
we
to,
saw that.
to clamp the ear like this. It will block the blood vessels, and then you do a cut so there's no bleeding.
So once you've done the darting, is there anything more that you're involved with?
Yes, we also examine the animal for any injuries.
Okay.
We take blood samples,
Uh-huh.
which we are going to run in the laboratory to do the disease screening, so that in case an animal has some infections, we can follow up and do medication.
Okay.
And also in case we find it with the injury or any illness, we have the drugs here that we use.
Right.
With me here are different types of antibiotics.
Yeah.
And anti-inflammatory drugs. We
Gosh.
have drugs for worms, deworming the animals.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. So we have various drugs in this kit that we use to do the treatment, because catching the rhino is difficult. So we maximize everything that we can do at that time.
A really, really intricate process, but thank you, a job well done. We witnessed it, and it was pretty incredible. A lot of effort goes into it. Dr. Dominic, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks a lot, you're welcome.
While high-tech efforts are being made to save the lives of rhinos, they are still a population under threat. Poachers are getting more and more sophisticated, and also a small African country, that is Swaziland, has proposed to CITES for the reintroduction of international trade in rhino horn that could have devastating effects. But there is still hope, and that hope is right here. Ringo, the baby southern white rhino in Ol Pejeta. You may remember this little guy from one of our other episodes. He is adorable and really, really a sign that the future can be bright. If we want more little Ringos around, then really we must protect the bigger rhinos. So I urge you to come to Ol Pejeta, see all the rhinos, come and spend some time with this little guy, Ringo. He really, really is a special one. All right, well, for now, let's shift focus and introduce our Wild Pick segment. Here are some of the photos that you sent in that demonstrate you love nature and the environment. Jacqueline Wahu sent in a photo taken at the Hala Park in Mombasa. She was on a trip with classmates from campus and says that she has a special place for wildlife. Robert Nyamari sent a photo taken at the Yatta Hills, where he discovered a big rock that's 30 meters high and a plant that grew on it while on a retreat with friends. Robert says he loves nature. Then there's Lily Ephraim, who sent in a photo taken on Mount Longonot. She was hiking with friends up to the crater, and she says she loves hiking. And Wanjiku and her son Alex sent in this photo taken at the Victoria Falls in Zambia. They were posing by the falls and say they both love nature. Abraham Njenga sent in a photo taken in Mara North Conservancy at the Rhino Sanctuary. He was petting a rhino called Queen Elizabeth that allowed him to get up close, and Abraham says that he is a wildlife enthusiast. If you want your photo featured in our Wild Pick segment, just like our NTV Wild Facebook page. Send a photo that demonstrates you love nature via private message. Include your name, where the photo was taken, what you were doing and why. Well, that's it from me, Ringo, and all the other rhinos here in Ol Pejeta. Thanks for watching NTV Wild Talk with me, Smriti Vidyarthi. See you again Tuesday, 10 p.m.